disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Been a fantastic day so far. So when Rachel Maddow of MSNBC announced that after Donald Trump's victory in the Iowa caucus, announced to viewing audience that she will not provide live coverage because she feels that it is in due part of her integrity to not provide you misinformation. I found that absolutely hilarious. It was absolutely insane that MSNBC just came forward with that statement, even though MSNBC, we know what they are, we know what they stand for. And I just want to rehash that moment for you, just if people aren't aware of what she said here. This is just moments after they projected that Donald Trump won in the state of Iowa. And this is just how chaotic it was.
Let me just interject. I'm sorry, I just have to do a little bit of business just for a second. At this point in the evening, the projected winner of the Iowa caucuses has just started giving his victory speech. We will keep an eye on that as it happens. We will let you know if there's any news made in that speech, if there's anything noteworthy, something substantive and important. The reason I'm saying this is, of course, there is a reason that we and other news organizations have generally stopped giving an unfiltered live platform to remarks by former President Trump. It is not out of spite. It is not a decision that we relish. It is a decision that we regularly revisit. And honestly, earnestly, it is not an easy decision, but there is a cost to us as a news organization of knowingly broadcasting untrue things. That is a fundamental truth of our business and who we are. And so his remarks tonight will not air here live. We will monitor them and let you know about any news that he makes.
So that was Rachel Maddow making the disclaimer that, hey, we are not going to show you live coverage because we need, in our part, to take the time to propagandize you and fearmonger you to make Donald Trump still seem like the bad guy I envisioned in my brain, because he's still the ultimate boogeyman, and I still have my personal vindictions against him. So I got to do my part and not show you a live feed because it might misinform you. You're too stupid to figure it out, so we're not going to show you a live feed. And then thus, I'm going to say what I felt about the live feed and then tell you if it's noteworthy or not. Because that's how much MSNBC cares. They care so much that they're not going to provide unfiltered coverage and let the viewers decide for themselves. They're going to say that you're too stupid and too sensitive to figure it out, and we're just going to spoon feed it to you like a baby. Even though Rachel Maddow seems to be the childish one for not even mentioning his name. Did you notice that? She didn't even mention his name. The projected winner is going to have a speech. Can't even say Donald Trump because it gives you shivers down your spine. Like, what's up with that? So Glenn Greenwald reminds us, and he retweeted this the video there that you just saw. He says, why would anyone expect that a media platform singularly devoted to the election of the Democratic Party officials who broadcast the speech of the leading GOP candidate, Maddow doesn't need to do all these painful contortions. Everyone understands what MSNBC and NBC are. That's what makes it so hilarious, is that we already know what kind of broadcasting network MSNBC and NBC are. We already know the standards that they set. We already know the pathological lies they've already imposed on themselves and what little integrity they have left as a news broadcaster. So why all of a sudden they have to do this, rushing out of, trying to give the disclaimer of the fact that, well, we don't want to show a live feed because we don't feel that unfiltered coverage is acceptable in this world because there might be misinformation, there might be disinformation, and our part is to do everything that we can to propagandize you. Like, the fact that they need to come forward with that is just absolutely hilarious. So I thought, for the fun of it, because maybe there's people out there that still think MSNBC is still a noteworthy broadcast and Rachel Maddow is top dog. There is some people out there. I thought I'd take on myself to look at Matt Orfalea's little video here that he composed together with Matt Taibbi exposing the many, many lies of MSNBC and pretty much the NBC family of news broadcasters. So Matt Orfalea tweets this out. He says, if you look on Racket News today, you'll see that MSNBC alone made hundreds of false claims of Russia meddling, citing the Hamilton 68 dashboard, which past Twitter files revealed to Americans be tracking Americans, not Russian bots or trolls, as claimed. So here's Matt Orfalea put this little presentation together, and I always love these little montages that he makes here. And I just thought, for the fun of it, let's just, gander at the past many, many mistakes that NBC has told us as they claimed factual when they're not providing live coverage of Donald Trump's speech because they believe that that is disinformation.
McCarthy publicly charges that the United States is infested with
Foreign forces at work in our politics.
He says that he has a list of
600 Twitter accounts that appear to be linked to the Russian government.
That's a lie.
These Kremlin-linked accounts, these Kremlin-linked accounts, these Kremlin-linked accounts, Russian-linked accounts, Kremlin-linked accounts, a foreign influence, Kremlin-oriented Twitter accounts, Kremlin-linked Twitter accounts, Russian-linked Twitter accounts, impersonating Americans.
They are every day playing on social media. There's a website called Hamilton 68 that measures
This Russian influence tracker on Twitter.
The Russian dashboard is a real-time dashboard of Russian influence.
The Russian networks that we monitor.
Accounts allegedly linked to bots and trolls that are linked to Russia.
Russia linked accounts and bots according to a Russian tracker.
To track what Russian bots are doing.
Kremlin-linked accounts, Kremlin efforts, Kremlin attacks.
The dashboard, Hamilton 68, determined that Russia was in the Alabama election. We know that the Russians were focused on this. These forensic sites show what the Russians are doing to us.
Interference from Russians.
These Russian intrusions.
Russian influenced Twitter accounts.
Connected with Russia were interfering.
the impact of McCarthyism is felt across the United States.
The Russian bot pose a grave threat to democracy.
Now, this data comes from Hamilton 68. That's a web dashboard, and it tracks around 600 Russia-linked accounts, and it doesn't provide the names of those accounts.
I will not give those names.
Because if it did, the Russians could simply change them.
You're kidding me?
Russian bots, obviously connected with Russian intel agencies, getting involved in a school shooting.
What the hell is he talking about?
The horrendous shooting at the high school in Florida. Russia played a role.
Bots that spread false information on Twitter when it comes to the shooting in Parkland, Florida.
Russian social media bots seized on the Florida shooting. Russian trolls tweeting about Parkland.
Russian bot army pounds.
Russian bots and trolls already attacking these kids. How do you feel when you see one of these kids manipulated by Russian bots or others?
Are you fucking kidding me?
So, Ken, what are these bots trying to accomplish?
Well, they're trying to fan the flames of political discord in our country, Stephanie, which is not that difficult to do.
Russian bots have helped drum up support on social media for the release of this Nunes memo.
A classified report about alleged bias at the FBI and DOJ.
Devin Nunes got it trending on Twitter with a little help from Russian bots.
The leading troll hashtag from the Russian troll farm is release the memo. Russians and release the memo.
This release the memo hashtag is the top hashtag among Russian bots and trolls, according to Hamilton 68.
Russian-linked Twitter accounts increase their use of the hashtag release the memo. Russian-backed social media accounts.
Russia's attempts to interfere in U.S. politics.
Research shows Russians interfering in our politics.
Russia-linked Twitter accounts working to help American politicians.
So you have House Republicans and Donald Trump Jr. tweeting, by the way, on the same page as these Russian bots and trolls.
The hashtag release the memo we know was being pushed by Russian bots. Russian bots in the hashtag release the memo.
This bot thing amplifying the release the memo hashtag.
And Russia used these bots, swarms of them, to advance certain hashtags like release the memo.
It was Russian bots and trolls fueling release the memo. Russian bots fueling this hashtag release the memo, fueled by Russian bots.
Which has been linked to Russian bots.
Researchers have traced it to Russia-linked accounts. That's what popularized that, Stephanie.
It blew up overnight. Some could make the argument that Devin Nunes memo also blew up. It was nothing.
Russian bots, They're creating an echo chamber. They're creating an alternate reality.
All right, up next, they are back. Russian bots working overtime to influence Americans and lawmakers.
Russian propaganda networks are working to influence public opinion, even now with the Release the Memo campaign.
Yeah, literally Russian bots on social media distributing that hashtag like wildfire. Republican memo pushed hard by Russian bots, Twitter bots. Russian Twitter bots helps make the Release the Memo go viral.
The Russian bots, in terms of this memo,
Russian bots heavily pushed Release the Memo.
Kremlin-linked bots. The automated accounts calling for that memo's release.
We saw it promoted heavily by accounts associated with Russian disinformation campaigns.
Russian Twitter bots.
Attack of the bots. Early promoters of the hashtag meet basic criteria for bots, for trolls. Release the Memo was pumped out by the bots.
The Russians, their secret service, their bots flooding with hashtags Release the Memo to interfere in an American debate.
Experts tracking Russian influence campaigns blame Russian bots and trolls. The Release the Memo hashtag seemed to go viral organically, but new research is showing that it was Russian-backed accounts, these bots, if you will. New research is showing us that Russian-backed Twitter accounts, researchers say Russian-backed accounts, manufactured accounts, malicious automated accounts or bots guide Trump toward a Russia-backed agenda. Those Russian-backed accounts Release the Memo picked up so much momentum that it began capturing the attention of major media organizations because of bots.
Heavily pushed by Russian bots. That's a matter of public record.
If there's anybody out there that questions that, I can't wait for you to grab your Cheetos and put on your tidy whities and go down to your mom's basement and start typing that blog away.
The bots.
That will be interesting. And by the way, order up your Russian bots. And the Russian bots that they are sending out are going hashtag Release the Memo, doing the bidding of Vladimir Putin and his intelligence agencies.
So, this is like a 15-minute video. I'm not going to show all of it because you already know. If you don't know by now, you already know. And it's just hilarious that Rachel Maddow is so concerned about a live feed covering Donald Trump's victory speech of Iowa. It's conflictive of the many, 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 many years of determination that MSNBC has provided you by providing the most radicalized propaganda you ever heard in your life. Everything from Russia bots to Vladimir Putin to, the mass amount of disillusion, conspiracy, wacky insanity that poured out of the Russiagate era was just absolutely crazy. And the fact that they, tied that to not just the Donald Trump campaign, but they tied that to certain actors, certain movements, certain news organizations. They tried to tie Fox News to Russian agents. They tried to smear a bunch of people on Twitter as some sort of agents of the Kremlin, even though that was complete false. That was complete a hoax. And the supposed bots that came from Russia was actually an American organization purposely trained to act like Kremlin puppets so that they could stop the Kremlin puppets. It was a scam from the get-go, and they knew that it happened because there was FBI reports releasing all that information, and they didn't tell you any of that because it would ruin the conflicting argument that somehow Russia hacked the American democracy that we love so dearly, and that is why everything is backwards, upside down, crazy. That is why people are so contradictive. That is why people are counteracting the establishment. Why can't you just get into line? Because if you don't get into line, somehow you're some sort of Russian agent. If you're not a Russian agent, then you must be an agent of China or an agent of North Korea or whatever. The same exact tropes we have heard how many freaking years. And that is why Rachel Maddow was so determined on that night to not even mention Donald Trump's name, but tell you that I cannot provide a live feed because I'm a good, honest person of the Comcast family. And as a good member of the Comcast family, I am not going to provide you that false information of live coverage because that'd be too much journalism for you. I'm going to give you bitty spoonfuls of propaganda that's so easily digestible and goes good in your tum-tum. That, like my viewers that are also stir crazy about Donald Trump, will take it so lightly. Instead of saying that, you know, Donald Trump is no different than any other figure, and the reason the establishment hates him so much is because they can't control him 100%. They can't, you know, detain him the same way that a Ron DeSantis or a Joe Biden or a Kamala Harris or Nikki Haley, they can't easily just grab him and control him. That's why they hate a character like Donald Trump. Not because he's any different than any other, you know, douchey politician or businessman in the world, but because he's a wild card. He was the first president to shake hands in North Korea in my generation and try to find some sort of peace agreement towards two nations. That was something amazing that should have been applauded, not smeared at. But because these are owned by, you know, military titans and the contractors and the military industrial complex, they're not going to applaud that. They're going to say that throwing missiles into Syria once again is very presidential, not actually having the notion to have a peaceful business deal, a peaceful transaction between two nations to de-escalate tensions. So that is MSNBC for you, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what makes this whole thing so absolutely hilarious. And all this really shows is that, you know, it makes Donald Trump even more of an innocent person. And I wouldn't say that Donald Trump is completely 1,000% innocent because, yes, there may be some business practices in the past that should be brought up and held accountable. But again, like any other businessman in the world, like every other smucky billionaire, venture capitalist that we see time to time again, he's no different. He is no different. The only reason they hate him so much is because he's a bit of a wild card. He could say things that the rest of the establishment is too afraid to say so because they have been blackmailed, they have been captured, and they've been, you know, mutilated to push what narrative needs to be pushed out.